Hello, 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 what's happening everybody? MCOC Droid does back again for another video on Marvel Contest of Champions. So Nick Fury's Recon Initiative started earlier this week. It's kind of similar to the Gwenpool Goes to the Movies event. It's a little bit harder in difficulty overall, I would say, but still not too bad. But it works in the same fashion. So it's 4 weeks worth of stuff. There are different champ requirements based on each week or each chapter, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to get into it here. But yeah, so the first week has already been unlocked. Obviously, we'll get week 2 in a couple of days, so on and so forth. Once it's unlocked, you've got the whole time to finish it. So it's not like you only have a week to get it all done. And with each difficulty, you know, there are a bunch of different rewards up to and including 5-star shards, tier 2 alpha frags, as you see right there, more rewards in the chapters themselves. But the special part of this event is the intel, as you can see right here, and by the title of this video. It is all about the intel. So it's kind of similar to, you know, the Infinity Dust, the Valor, the stuff like that from before, where you're going to earn this special currency only through this event, as well as a login calendar. I'll get to that in a second. And you can use it in a special store that is only good for intel. FYI, for those who are wondering, since the first day, for whatever reason, the stuff initially only showed up in the miscellaneous tab, and they wisely moved it over to its own store right there. So thankfully there is a tab for it, which helps keep it more organized. But again, so you earn intel through those two different means, and you have the entire month to decide, what do I want to do with this intel? So as I mentioned before, there are 2 ways of getting it: through the event itself and then through a daily calendar that will reset every single week. As you can see, we're already through 5 days so far. And so there'll be 4 weeks of this total as well. Now, when they had the initial forum post, Kabam Mike actually did the math for us. Let me pop it up right here. So there you go. Because they're talking about, if you didn't see it there in the store, the top prize is a 5-star Awakening Gem Crystal, which is pretty awesome. Those are very rare to come by. So he points that out. And he mentions that that costs 5,000 intel, and it's only possible to get 5,740 intel from normal play. Now, by that phrasing, I assume that means there will probably be intel that will pop up in some sort of deals toward the end of the event. So, you know, take everything I say with a grain of salt based on how much becomes available with those deals, if you choose to get those deals, etc., etc. But through normal play, as he puts it, you can get 5,740 intel. So how does that break down? Again, there is this weekly calendar here that will reset 4 times. It's 435 intel per week. So you multiply that by 4, and that is 1,740 intel. That's where they get that 740. So then that means the other 4,000 comes from the event itself. So as I mentioned with each chapter, and I'll just pull up Epic here, but, you know, it's arbitrary. With each chapter, as you can see, you get intel from the first completion and from exploration. There is a bug with this week's beginner where it's more than what it's supposed to be in terms of paths, which is why they made it 0 energy. But essentially, it is supposed to be 2 paths per chapter. So, you know, your completion is 50%, and then your exploration is 100%. 2 runs. Pretty simple. So I did the math on this as well. I'll start from the top and work my way down. Each week for each individual difficulty is exactly the same. So as you can see here, for beginner, each week is going to be 50 intel if you do completion and exploration, for a max of 200. For normal, each week is 100, so that'll be a max of 400. For heroic, each week is 150, so that is a max of 600. For master, each week is 250, so that is a max of 1,000. And lastly, for epic, each week is a max of 450 for a grand total of 1,800. So all of that combined is 4,000 intel that you can earn if you do all 5 difficulties 100% for all 5 weeks. So what can that intel get you? Well, we already talked about the 5-star Awakening Gem. Again, that's kind of the cream of the crop right there, and I'll scroll over to it right here. Again, these are pretty rare, even for endgame players, especially for free-to-play players. These don't come by very often, both in terms of deals and in terms of actual in-game content and rewards. So for a lot of people, again, this is absolutely going to be the grand prize. Again, I would only recommend it if you are planning on getting all of the difficulties done. And I know that sounds like a duh kind of a thing, because you absolutely need to get pretty much 100% on everything and log in every day. That only leaves you with 740 intel left over. But what I really mean by that is if you're not prepared to do all 4 weeks of all 5 difficulties complete, you probably should use your intel elsewhere. Even if you are able to get to like just at about 5,000, I probably then wouldn't throw all of it into just this. Now, granted, it's rare, so maybe you do want to take that shot, whether it's a champ that you have right now that you really hope that you can awaken, or whether you're saving for, you have Nick Fury and Captain Marvel that came out this month, so maybe you're hoping for a skill or a cosmic gem. So again, to each their own, and that'll be the overall theme to this video. Is of course everyone is going to be different. We all have our own mentalities. What do we need? What do we want in terms of our roster, in terms of our progression? So again, it will be very individualized. However, again, I think that if you're not comfortably clearing uncollected every single month, you have a nice, roster of 5 stars or what have you, even if you hit the 5,000, in my opinion, you probably shouldn't go for this. The intel would be better spent, working on tier 1 alphas or tier 2 alphas, which I'll get to in a second. And maybe even shards as well if you wanted to go for that. But in my opinion, at that rate, you probably should be spending the intel on materials that will help more of your roster advance instead of risking it all on one Awakening Gem for one champion. But again, that's just personal opinion. Like I said, we're all going to think differently. Let me get the quote-unquote easy stuff out of the way. What do I think you should not go for? And this is oddly organized. I don't know why they couldn't keep it in order. I guess they tried to kind of keep this with like tier 1 stuff and tier 2 stuff together. But I do kind of wish the tier 2 alphas were separated out elsewhere, because they're right in the middle of what I think absolutely nobody should spend intel on. I mean, unless you have some left over at the very end of the event, I would say there's no point in getting either of the tier 1 basic or class catalyst related stuff, the tier 2 basic, the tier 2 class catalyst, the tier 3 basic, the tier 3 class catalysts, excuse me. The tier 3s are a little bit annoying to farm, which is a whole other topic. But for the most part, all this stuff is easily farmable, not really worth your resources, especially once you start talking about, 50 intel for a tier 3 basic, 80 intel for a tier 3 class catalyst crystal, so you might not even get the catalyst that you're looking for. Again, if you have some intel left over at the end and you want to throw it in, sure, go for it. Honestly, though, probably, it's not really worth it for anybody in this game to go for any of those. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the tier 5 basic catalyst frags, and again, I'll have to scroll up, but the 6-star shards. I think for the price point compared to everything else, it's just not worth it. One note I need to throw out, which applies to all items, is, of course, thankfully, no matter how many of each you buy, it doesn't scale. It's not like it's some of the other promotions where, the first item is a certain cost, and then number 2 goes up a little bit, and then number 3 goes up even more. Thankfully, no matter what you're buying, it all stays the same price. So that is nice. That is absolutely nice. But again, when you're talking about, you have, just in terms of this intel, you have the 5-star Awakening Gem Crystal at 5,000 intel. Obviously, that's a big ticket item. If you get 1,000 6-star shards, I would not say that that's worth 80% of a 5-star Awakening Gem Crystal, especially if you do end up getting a class that you really want. I would have loved to see this be a bit more. Even 500 shards per stack would have been nicer. Because then at the very least you would have 2,000 6-star shards, so that's 20% towards a 6-star basic. That at least would be better. But when you're spending, you know, a good chunk of your intel on 10% of a 6-star basic at best, it's just not really worth it. And then the tier 5 basic frags are kind of the same story. I mean, again, some people might disagree simply because those are also still, you know, fairly harder to come by. So this would certainly help speed up progression, but again, you can only buy 3, so that's a max of 4,500 tier 5 basic frags, which is half of what you get every single month if you 100% uncollected. Now again, not everybody can do that right now, but if you're not 100% uncollected every single month right now, you probably don't really need to spend your intel on these tier 5 basic frags. So again, it would have been nice to see. Well, this definitely needs a bump. I mean, when you're talking about 4,500 frags for almost 4,000 intel, definitely not worth it. I would say it would need to be, I mean, at a minimum, double the frags, but probably at least triple, if not more, to make it worthwhile, in my opinion. So I would just skip all of those entirely. Those very low ticket stuff, and then those 2 of the high ticket stuff. Since we're down here, let's talk about these Tier 4 Basic and Tier 4 CC crystals. Tier 4 Basic, honestly, that's not a bad price, I would say. You know, so again, you can get a max of 5, and that's 2,000 intel. That's not terrible. I might buy 1, you know, 2 at the most. If there do end up being deals, like maybe if intel gets added to unit packs or something like that, and I end up springing for them, then I might buy more, because I think it's reasonably priced. Same with the Tier 4 CC crystal. I think maybe it's a little bit less reasonably priced than the basic, but it's still pretty solid. I personally don't need these. I have a fair amount that I get through AQ and, you know, just building them up from events and things like that. So I personally don't need these. I think if you are looking for Tier 4 CC, you know, maybe get 1, maybe get 2. If you're not getting the classes you need, though, it becomes expensive very fast. So it's not a bad deal. I just probably wouldn't focus too much on it. I'll talk about the Tier 2 alphas towards the end. I did forget to mention a couple of other things that I think just aren't really worth it to anybody. The Sig Stone Crystals, both for 4-star and for 5-star. Same deal, you know, I think they're too expensive for what they are, simply because, again, they're not generic stones, they're crystals. So you know, might not get the classes that you need, whether it's, you know, 200 for 5-star or 60 for 4-star. I think those are still a little bit overpriced. I'd be fine with spending that price if they were generic, but I'd probably still think it's a little high. So I would have liked to see the price come down a little bit. But they really should have been generic. The fact that they're crystals just makes it a very easy pass. Again, maybe if you have some left over, go for it. But honestly, it should go into other resources. 3-star crystal, you know, maybe if you're a relatively newer player, it might help progress the roster a bit. Whether it's getting a new 3-star or whether it's duping a 3-star. So maybe you're awakening somebody you really use a lot. You're getting those 4-star shards. You know, so maybe for very, very new players who are just starting this month or last month, something like that. But for the most part, I think that's pretty easy to avoid. The 4-star crystal, again, kind of the same deal. I mean, like, it's not really worth it, in my opinion. Like, again, it's not horribly overpriced. It's a fine price for what it is. I think the 4-star Awakening Gem crystal is actually a really good price, and I might go for it just for the heck of it. You know, so especially for lower and mid-range players, this is a really good deal. I would much rather see somebody get this Awakening Gem crystal than the 4-star crystal. Now, same deal. I kind of wish this was generic, and I'd be willing to, you know, add an extra 100 intel or something, make it a flat 500 intel and make it generic. I think that would be a much better deal. But I think 400 for a 4-star Awakening Gem Awakening Gem crystal is pretty darn good. The 4-star shards, I'd pretty much avoid. Again, maybe unless you're a lower to mid-range player, you're close to that next pole. But obviously, you know, it's same deal. It just kind of gets expensive really quickly. And as you can see, if you're spending all 4 of these purchases, that's 1,140 intel, where you could just buy the fully formed crystal for 900. So obviously that is a better deal. So the shards, maybe buy it once if you're looking to top it off and you're really hoping for a really great 4-star pull. If you're a lower to mid-range player, I think as you're getting higher up, pretty easy to skip. So the 5-star shards also are not that bad. They're not amazing either. So they're good for topping off or if you're building up something. I mean, again, if you chose to go for this, you could. And this is also why I kind of think they're going to be Intel deals. Because you can actually get 10,000 shards and even more by getting all these. But even if you just stick to buying the 2,500 shards both times, so that's 5,000, and then buying the 1,000 shards 5 times, so that's another 5,000. So that's 10,000 shards. That would be a basic pull right there. Unfortunately, it is 5,755 intel. And again, the max, as we saw from the forum post, is going to be 5,740. So I would assume that there will be deals to kind of cover the gaps, but who knows? Maybe they'll skip it out this time. So it is almost possible to get a fully formed 5-star basic from this. So you can get pretty close. Again, it's not bad. It's not great. So maybe if you're chopping off or you're getting close to your next pull or something like that, it couldn't hurt to go for these. Again, they're not as badly priced as some of the other items in the store. However, they're not amazingly priced either, unfortunately. So, a little bit of a bump somewhere would have been nice, or at least a reduction in intel, but it is what it is. Tier 1 alphas are I think, priced greatly. I mean, I know this event is giving out a fair amount, which is nice, but in case you happen to need more, I mean, we all always need more Tier 1 alphas. This is pretty good. 400 intel gets you 5 of them. That's not bad at all. I think that's really great. But honestly, far and away, the best deals in this whole thing are the Tier 2 alpha frags. I mean, we all need Tier 1 alphas, but we all absolutely need Tier 2 alphas. And so this is pretty darn good. I mean, again, you can only buy the 18,000 once. You can only buy the 7,200 once. And you can get the 3,600 3 times. So that is enough for one fully formed Tier 2 alpha, which is great. And so I did the math here. If you do the max purchases on all of the Tier 2 alpha frags, that is 1,000 total. So 1,000 intel would get you a fully formed Tier 2 alpha. That, to me, is an amazing deal. Now, again, not counting any offers that may pop up. If you go for that, that only would leave you with a max of 4,740 intel, so you could not get that and get the 5-star Awakening Gem Crystal. So buyer beware. However, I mean, it's such an amazing deal that I think most players should be going for it. No matter what, it's a rank up material, so it will help whoever you choose to use it on. Whereas the 5-star Awakening Gem Crystal, again, it could always be saved for a future champ, obviously, but you might not get what you need right now. So it all depends on what is kind of, the risk versus reward for you, for your roster, for your alliance, where you're at in the game, etc., etc. Anyway, hopefully you found this breakdown informative. I'm still deciding. I've not spent any intel yet. I'm going to hopefully try and hold out till towards the end of the event. Again, see if any deals pop up, try and figure out the true max intel that can be achieved, however much I want to spend on, if any, and then kind of go from there. But we'll see. I may break down and buy some shards or buy some frags very soon. We'll see. But anyway, that is going to wrap it up. Let me know in the comments below, what are you planning on buying from the Intel store? What are you hoping for? Very curious to hear all of that. I am in the middle of more content March 2, where I'm dropping a new vid or stream every single day. So if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you get notified about all of the content coming out this month. Smash the like button too. All 3 of those are really, really appreciated. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for watching this. Take care, and I will see you next time.